What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to Decaf Episode 3. I hope this does find you well. If you're listening on anchor.fm/Samuel Adams, thanks for taking the time to check out the podcast. This is kind of a spin-off of my main series, which is Caffeinate, which I do every single weekday morning at 7 a.m., where I talk about the hottest video game news and catch you guys up on what you need to know over the course of the past 24 hours that you may have missed. Though with Decaf, it's a little bit different. I do talk about content creation. I talk about live streaming. I talk about creating videos, whatever kind of new ideas that I have or any kind of concept that I think is worth being shared. I kind of bring it forth on an episode of Decaf every Wednesday generally. And so this week we have episode 3, which is going to be a pretty good episode, I think. I'm pretty excited to talk about what I have to say, but that is the idea of the Big Sibling Mentality, which is kind of like a social responsibility that I think everybody that creates content online should at least take into consideration, and we'll discuss that further. Though, what is the Big Sibling Mentality? What do I mean by that? And what I intend to get across with saying the Big Sibling Mentality is this idea of being a big brother or a big sister, being looked up to in general, somebody to be observed and replicated and to serve as an example of what kind of person to be. And this has been on my mind recently because, of course, I'm kind of transitioning back over to twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams because of the kind of games that I want to play and because of the kind of content that I want to make. But for the past about week and a half or so, I was streaming regularly over there on Mixer, and one thing that I noticed about the style of audience that I was getting, the type of person that was coming to my chat, generally younger kids, and I think that's because of the visibility on the Xbox itself. Now, for those that don't know anything about Mixer, it's pretty much a competitor directly to Twitch, and whenever you log on to an Xbox One, the Mixer tab is literally one tab over from the homepage, which has a ton of power, and it also is kind of a drawback depending on what kind of audience you do want to attract. So for instance, if you are just focused on numbers, if you want to create a family-friendly show that kids of all ages can enjoy, that everybody can love and enjoy, and that is just a nice, fun-loving kind of community, then by all means, that's a great place to do that. Though, if you tend to talk about, things like politics, if you tend to talk about things like social issues, if you tend to talk about things that are a little bit above the standard, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds capabilities, then you may have a harder time finding an audience over there on Mixer right now. That's not to say that the wasteland is completely and totally barren. I think that there are a ton of people that are flocking over to Mixer to find new content, to find people that are making content. I think that visibility is going to be a big part of that platform. I think that if you go over there and you create high quality content right now, then you can in fact get somewhere, but it just depends on what you're playing. For instance, if you are playing Fortnite or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, then you have a much higher chance of being successful over there on Mixer because there are less people streaming it as compared to Twitch. But in general, unless you are like the god of Fortnite, I would highly advise against streaming it. But with that being said, going back to the audience that I found, younger kids, and they're very, very friendly as well, which is something that I noticed. They are just good people. It's very cool to see. And so that's kind of what I wanted to address here today, because we have kind of a social responsibility, or at least I feel compelled to be responsible for influencing these people, influencing this younger generation of gamers in a positive way, pushing them towards doing the right thing, socializing them to be good people. We have some kind of responsibility for that, because to some degree there are a lot of people that are raised by things like Twitch chat, like Mixer chat, like YouTube comments, like YouTube videos. There are so many people that are socialized into our world via these new forms of media, and I think that is a very important factor to take into consideration whenever we're discussing what these new forms of media like YouTube, like live streaming, are bringing to the table, and something that really should be studied in a university. But I know there was a story that we covered a couple of weeks back on Caffeinate, and I wasn't planning on talking about this on this episode of Decaf, but it was somebody that was being racist or some kind of homophobic comment or something like that. It was a professional esports player, and he said that he had essentially been raised by Twitch chat, which can be very toxic at times. But the fact that an adult said that, the fact that somebody actually made that statement and said, yeah, I was pretty much raised and socialized by Twitch chat, there is a power within the chat box. There is a power within live streaming. There's a power within YouTube that has the potential to completely and totally change the next generation of Americans, of world citizens of every country. There is such a power hidden within what we have going on with live streaming that it is important to realize that, and it's important to take note of that and think about that as you are creating content. So if you are streaming online and you're dropping, you're dropping N-bombs, you're dropping any kind of terrible language, like stuff that you wouldn't say to your grandma face to face. I mean, it depends on what kind of grandma you have. But if you are saying things that in general will be considered bad, then you have to remember that you are impacting somebody that is in their formative years. More than likely, if you are streaming on Twitch and you have, between 20 and 30 followers, or between 20 and 30 viewers, then more than likely you are going to be having somebody in there that is of a younger nature. You are influencing these people and creating them into the people that they're going to be going forward. So I encourage you all, to realize this responsibility you have, you realize this power you have to shape the minds, to shape the lives of people that are younger than you. It's a very big responsibility, one that I wasn't aware of when I was going into creating content, because I started creating content as somebody who was emerging, as somebody who was being influenced. That's kind of how I all began. And or how my content began. And so I encourage you all, like I said, to realize this, to form your content in such a way that is going to be a positive influence. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying censor yourself. I'm not saying, create family-friendly content that you could show on PBS. I'm not saying that whatsoever, because I understand that everybody has different values for their content. Everybody has different goals for their content. I get that you are trying to target a specific audience, but just realize that whatever you're putting out there, whatever you are creating, whatever you're streaming, whatever you're uploading to YouTube, whatever you're doing in podcast form, whatever you are uploading to SoundCloud, whatever it may be, realize that the target audience you are trying to get is more than likely going to incorporate in some way, shape, or form some younger person, somebody that is able to be influenced on a very impactful level that could actually shape how the rest of their life does end up going. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Decaf. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, drop me a like down below. If you are on Anchor.fm, favorite the podcast and let me know what you think by responding with a voice message or something like that. Or you can always just hit me up on Twitter.com/PrettyChillGuy. Keep up to date with all of the live streams, all of the videos, all of the podcast, all that good stuff that I post over there on my social media page, because I am so incredibly active and addicted to Twitter. I have no problem admitting that. But I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks again for watching and listening, and peace.